Hey everyone, welcome to week 80. Today is day 1. This is the first day of our new week, which means a new theme. The theme for this week is going to be called Against. Let's see how we do. Okay, let's get started. Today's Monday. This is the first day of our new week. And the theme for this week, it was originally going to be called Break It. I settled on titling the week Against. But let me explain what I was trying to get to, and you'll realize that I think it was a really cool idea, but I think the execution of it was kind of impossible. So after that long-winded rant that was, last week, where we reflected a bunch on the nature of contemporary painting, and we imagined one possible avenue where painting is going in the future, I was kind of drawing blanks thinking, okay, what do I do after this week? Because it's really hard to go from such a big reflection on painting and then say, hey, I'm going to paint with acrylics and just make a week about some formal aspect of painting. Honestly, there'd be nothing wrong with that because during this project, we've been changing things up and we've acknowledged also that the technical formal aspects of painting are very much part of the makeup of painting. So when we concentrate on those, I have a blast. Those weeks are also amazing, but it just felt a little weird. I would have halted my mind, dead stop and said, okay, that week is over. You can just put a pin on those thoughts and let's go back to painting. That felt just a little off. So for this week, I thought, you know what? Why don't we just break my painting? And that sounded awesome. That sounded absolutely amazing. But then I started thinking, what does that really mean? I mean, what does breaking my painting mean? Because in my mind, breaking it was also kind of tied to the idea of unlearning. So I guess the foundation of the idea was going against your instincts, going against those things that make you comfortable, going against those experiences that you've already encountered and you've learned from. We base our knowledge upon those experiences. So what if we try not only to put those aside, but to literally try to break the rules that are part of their makeup? And that sounded so attractive. I mean, right now that I'm trying to explain it, because it's really hard to explain also, I'm realizing that it's super enticing. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, what's the goal then? Where do you stop? Because if breaking a painting, if just completely damaging the DNA of a painting is the objective, I mean, there's so many ways you can just ruin something, and I don't think that that's that difficult. It almost feels like a bit theatrical if I really, really think about it, because I could tear the painting to pieces and then reorganize it. I could paint over it. I could paint it with my left hand, which I have less control over. I could paint it with my eyes closed. I mean, I could do a ton of very arbitrary things just so that I have... And this is the part where I started to lose the confidence on what it would mean to break something, because I wouldn't really be losing control. The more I started to think about it, it just felt like a momentary lapse of judgment, where I would have a fit and I would try to ruin my painting, but I'm pretty sure that I would either have to do it in a very aware manner so that the end result could have some sense of resemblance of an image, because it's not about, for example, tearing the painting apart. It's not about breaking it into 100 pieces and then all you see is these little bits of paper that were once, a painting. What would be the point in that? Like, yes, you ruined your painting, and now what? And I guess that part, the now what part, is the one that got me thinking, because I think that what would happen, and I'm recalling moments of paintings where I was super experimental, where I would do exactly that. I would find ways in which I would give in to very emotional, very expressive painting, and then I would step back and say, okay, I went a little too far. Now I have to rein it back in, and I have to take control over my painting. So that's why I call it like an illusion of losing control, because you're just pausing it for a tiny little moment. You're letting, again, all these arbitrary things happen to your painting, and then you enter this sort of damage control mode where you're conscious again of the decisions you just made, and you desperately try to configure something new in your painting. But in that effort of trying to make something new, you're trying to give order to your painting once again. So the idea of breaking it, which would naturally conclude in something that is broken. That sounds super sexy to me. But I don't really feel that that's a cool exercise because, again, it would just entail 4 different ways of throwing your painting into the garbage can. That's basically what we would be doing. And I don't know if I found that theatricality of it all too attractive, because I know that if I quote unquote surrendered control for like a little bit and I just let myself go, there was going to be a moment where I was going to be like, okay, the painting can't end here. I have to try to find a way for this painting. And it would just be me trying to bring this painting back from the dead. And I think that those paintings would end up in the exact same place as every other painting that we've done for the past year and 9-10 months, which is me trying to do my best job at solving something. And that's about it. And I know that if there is a very chaotic moment within the painting, it sounds very attractive. You know, that's something that could draw you in because you're waiting for the tragedy to occur. And then you want to see how whomever is painting is able to bring back this painting from the dead. And I guess that's kind of exciting. But here's the thing. I think with almost every single painting that we paint, that sort of happens. It may not be as dramatic. It may not be as theatrical or as exaggerated as trying to do it on purpose, but those moments do happen in the execution of a painting. And that feeling of desperation, of knowing that you were trying to do something and you took a couple of bad decisions, and now, you know, your painting is absolutely ruined, and you have to focus now for an hour and a half to try to bring back this painting. That's what I experience almost every single time I paint. That feeling, I would say, is something that's inherent to painting. It's very natural to painting. So trying to put like a spotlight on that and trying to exaggerate it in a way that it's almost like a caricature of itself, I don't know if that's super attractive to me now. I'm sure that this could be like a super cool game, and I'm sure that it's pretty cool to put myself in situations where the obstacles are a bit more unknown, where the integrity of the painting is really on the line. I'm sure that those things make for good TV, but I don't know. I want to paint things and I want to try to have weeks that really fundamentally teach me something. I don't want them to be gimmicky because it's super, super easy to fall into these weeks becoming just very, very gimmicky challenges. I'm really aware of those things. And I always try to push myself so that even though they may feel uncomfortable, they are uncomfortable for a reason. Even though I am constructing an obstacle for myself, I know that in trying to solve that puzzle, in trying to overcome those issues, there is something at the other side that is valuable to me. I can find a source of growth when I overcome these things. So the idea of Break It, super nice. It would make a nice t-shirt. Very sexy, very attractive. But I don't know where to go with it. Maybe I'm not at a point where I understand it well enough. But yeah, I just thought it was kind of artificial. Plus, I felt that it would be like playing chess against myself. You know, like I'm trying to trick myself. I'm trying to one-up myself. And that's really impossible. I'm always going to be aware of the decisions and the traps that I'm trying to set for myself. And that's where I'm saying that surrendering control 100% as if somebody else was painting this painting for you is super difficult. At least that's not something that I know how to do. So Break It was sexy, but we're not going to go with that. And we went with Against, which is kind of nicer and a little more plausible, I feel, because I can try to teach myself to go against my instincts, to go against the things that I've constructed my painting upon. So I'll give you an example for today's painting, which was very weird, very uncomfortable. Like I changed a tiny little variable and it made my life hell. I really struggled to try and make sense of the painting. And I think that that is the feeling that I was looking for. I wasn't looking for something that was completely overboard. No, I was looking for something, let's call it a little more elegant, a little simpler in its essence. And today's painting, I think, provided me with that scenario. So what did we do? We did something super, super simple. I replaced a value, but this was a value that was incredibly important to the painting. It was crucial for the manner in which we understand the image. It was essential because Every other value in the painting remained exactly the same, or at least I tried to do that. But changing one value, altering that one small variable, reminded me of how indispensable the construction upon value relationships is for painting. I mean, that's like the bedrock of naturalist painting. It is so essential that if you mess with it, if you mess with like this tiny part of it, it all naturally just comes down. And I think that's what excited me the most once I started working, because I realized, wow, this simple decision to turn this massive light, which was a nice ray of sunlight that was filtering through my window and was hitting Dani. That's why she's covering her eyes with her hand, and was casting these really nice shapes of shadows. So the hand is casting the shadow that travels around Dani's eye sockets. The nose is casting this tiny little serpentine shadow. The upper lip is curling just a little bit into shadow. The bottom lip is casting like the smallest of shadows. And you can kind of feel cheekbones going down to the mandible, just wrapping around the lower lip, making that head turn vertically. And finally, the shadow that the head casts upon the neck. Things that are very simple, very easy to understand if, and here's the cool part, if we are able to respect that very strong value of that sunlight, of that very bright light. So what I decided to do, which is, in hindsight, very stupid, was to replace that value with a value that was very, very close to the shadow that was being cast. And I told myself, the values can be very close, but we're going to try to differentiate them with saturation. And every time I think of saturation, and perhaps this is because in my regular palette of titanium white, yellow ochre, cad red, alizarin, ultramarine blue, and raw umber, that is my go-to palette. The accent of saturation is in my reds. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And if we try to be more granular, it is going to be akin to the accent that is in a Zorn palette, which comes from cad red. So my most saturated color, the highest chroma in my palette, is going to come from cad red. So I told myself, okay, let's make this very saturated red that is essentially almost like the same value as these cast shadows, and let's see if it works, or let's dive into this problem and let's see if we can try to make a painting out of it. And I think that was super exciting because, again, this is where the title of the week makes sense, which is to go against the things that you understand to be true. Those immovable truths that are part of the makeup of your painting. What if you go against them? What if you understand that your instinct and every bone in your body, every bit of experience that you've gathered is telling you, hey, that's not right. If you do that, you're going to ruin the painting. You're going to offset every single relationship that is generated in the painting, because that's what I wanted. There were so many relationships, color, value relationships, that only make sense if you paint that bright light. They make no sense. And this is what I noticed when I painted them isolated from that very light sunlight. These decisions, these color decisions that I was painting have no reason for being. Because if you really think about it, a lot of them are the effect and the cause is the light. Because that ray of sunlight is filtering through the window and it's hitting Dani, all these relationships are generated surrounding that big ray of light. But if you take that ray of light away and you replace it with something completely arbitrary, nothing makes sense because the cause of all those other relationships is now gone. So how do you construct a painting when you take the most crucial element of it out of the painting, when you extract it from the painting? What happens to the painting? Can it survive that surgery? That's what I wanted to feel. I wanted to have that experience because it's not an experience that I usually have with my own work. As much as we want to believe that we push ourselves, many times we unconsciously subject ourselves to the things we know how to do. I was having a conversation the other day, and I was saying how we convince ourselves that we can be the boldest or the bravest in our paintings in areas that have no relevance. We are super brave when it doesn't matter. And I've certainly gone through that, and I've certainly felt that. And I guess I just didn't want to have that experience today. I wanted to put myself into real trouble, and not just superficial trouble, but trouble that can stem from something that is fundamental, something that is essential to painting. Again, this is like altering just a little bit the DNA of our painting enough so that we take off our footing. And it's wonderful. It's really wonderful because at the same time you're trying to understand what's going on with your painting, you're trying to construct a painting. You're trying to say, okay, these variables changed. These are the new, very awkward relationships that are being generated. Let me see what I can do with this. And I think that that's far more attractive than this initial idea of breaking something just for the sake of breaking it. So that was it for today. I think it's going to be a really cool week because even though I'm going to try to push myself to go against my instinct, I'm also fighting against this very primal pulse that is telling me solve a painting. You know, I don't want to do something that could put my painting into so much trouble that it makes it impossible for me to try to take it somewhere else. So I'm anticipating that I'm going to have some paintings during this week where I am going to try to go against my instinct, and I think my instinct is going to push back. But I think that that's super interesting also. That just shows you how very difficult it is to unlearn something. I think it's going to be super exciting, so we'll see how the week goes. That's going to be it for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow, Spanish Tuesdays. Brush up on your Spanish. See you guys. Love you. Bye.